It is August 10th at 1:10 p.m. We're here for IUPA negotiations. We'll go around the room real quick. For the record, I'm Heather Caravellas with the City of Port Orange.
Rick Curtis, USC of Port Orange Human Resources. Matt Jones, City Attorney.
Carly Meek, Assistant City Attorney.
Interim Chief Bill Proctor. Lauren Carmen, anything board member?
Ted Kurtz, Treasurer.
Jared Alves, Vice President IUPA.
And I know IUPA Attorney Gary Wilson is on his way.
Yes, he'll be here very shortly.
So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. Thank you to the union for continuing to want to meet. I know this is a very difficult time for your department right now. So our thoughts and prayers and condolences go out to every member of the police department as well as the city that works with Justin White. So I know this is hard, but as Gary Jefferson emailed, we'll keep moving forward. So
Thank you. So we sent you the copy of the wage proposal. I went over, I spoke to a lot of the bargaining unit members, the board, and what the copy you're receiving is, instead of the initial was at 20% with all the minimum wage future changes and the kind of the compression, getting ahead of that compression, getting ahead of that curvature that's coming. We backed our wage proposal down to 17%. You'll notice that the steps are the same. That was one of the things we wanted to bring up while we're at the meeting with you, because it's rather than go back and forth over an email. You're going to notice on the officer side that the probation starting salary, like I've said in the past, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the starting wage is in my opinion, it's a city thought of how you want to be competitive with the other agencies in the area. So I threw out another number that was a little bit more comparable, a little bit softer. I personally think that the city should want to aim higher than that, because we're still in that problem of recruiting. We're trying to recruit, and I can't stress the importance of trying to be competitive to current working officers. For that, so I suggested the 2150. I know that the last contract negotiations we talked about that the fluctuation where the acting chief or chief of police can move that salary over. I think it was up to an 8-year mark. So on the probation side, I put a number about 2150. Seemed very, very median at the moment. The first 3 years of that officer, where we talked about last time with recovery on some of this contract problems that we have, where we have officers that are leaving at that 1-2 year mark, and they've ran up a bill of training and try to recover that. So the mindset was to take that probationary officer in the first 3 years that they move on a 3% increment. On the 4th year, there's a 5% salary raise, where they kind of start falling into that line. And I think it's a good tool to get those officers that are coming in and committing them a little bit more to that long-term goal, that 4 or 5 year mark, and then getting them with the rest of the guys. It kind of just would dissuade someone from using our agency as a training ground, or making a split-second decision over a wage from another agency, especially with how Volusia County and Daytona Beach, and they're all in the same boat in terms of trying to recruit. The sergeant side and the officer side still falls on that 17% afterwards. So basically, I went down the line and adjusted the figures, and also on the last step for each, there's a slight increase because we talked about that. How do we, that final payment? Do we give them a check? Do we give them something? So from the ideas and gripes from a lot of the officers was that the check is a check, but it doesn't go towards their work career. So the end step for each side is I believe I noted it to be a 4% or 5% increase instead of I think it fell between a 2 to a 3 in that step. So the final one is kind of like one final here you go, here's this last one, you're done, and you're done from there. I know we proposed the insurance thing last time we were here, so we didn't, I know we talked about that insurance, the rate with the city was going up, I believe, I don't want to misquote, 6-ish%. We talked about.
For the health insurance?
Yes.
Actually, we're in the process of that renewal right now.
Right.
It looks like we might have a decrease in premium.
Okay.
So not only will
That
it
would
not
be
go
good.
up, it actually is going to go
That
down.
would
So
be
I don't
nice.
have that all in writing yet, but that's
Sure.
the initial preliminary numbers that.
Is that across the board, all the plans, or is that for certain?
So it doesn't, a decrease, let's say if that decrease was 2%, that's not like a 2% decrease to you or 2% decrease to you. That's to the cost of the plan. We then back out the city's contribution of whatever that value is, and then the employees left paying with whatever the dependent portion is. So it shakes out different to different levels of coverage on the different plans. You just have to look at the individual numbers, but that's an across the board average on the total premiums, not just the employee portion of it.
So it'd be even less than the decrease, which is basically split part of that, right?
Depends on which plan you have, right? So, if you've got the classic HMO, you pay more than somebody who's got the balanced HMO because it's no deductible plan versus a plan that has a deductible. So, yeah, so it'll vary slightly, but the overall, decrease right now is looking to be about 2%. So on a $4.5 million, cost, there's an overall pretty big numbers, but how that slices out to each employee, I don't have those numbers yet. I haven't run that. Like I said, this is all preliminary. Don't have anything in writing. The renewal hasn't been approved by council and all that stuff, but that's what we're working on. So to try to keep that cost down.
Did you do the comparison between East and Marion County and what we're paying?
So I attempted to. I thought actually going to Brown & Brown, who was the broker for most of the municipalities, would have that data. And they sent me data, and I was like, all right, great, we got this. And then I found out it wasn't exactly what I asked for. What they sent me isn't, for example, the land says they don't pay anything towards the dependent care coverage, but the spreadsheet I got from Brown & Brown had something on there. So I think I didn't communicate well enough what I was looking for, or maybe they just have that information. So I have not been able to gather the information from the individual cities yet, because I'm trying to go the easy route. Who pays for dependent care coverage and who doesn't? I can tell you the land has come back and said they don't, because I haven't, just to do a double check and went, hey, Carrie. But I'm still working on gathering that information. What I have gathered, I don't know that I sent it out to everybody because I was waiting to get all the responses, was I know we briefly talked about the employment contracts last time for recruits versus sworn officers. So I do have responses from maybe only about 5 agencies around here. So I will send that out. It's been probably about a week since I last heard from somebody on that one. So that information I did gather and I'll send that one out, but I don't have the first information yet.
Did you guys get a chance to review the wages?
You mean as far as costing out your wage proposal?
Just the number in general, because I'm trying to facilitate an easy, I understand it's money. Everyone understands it's money. Like we said prior, is we have to get ahead of what's coming. And we're in a position at the moment where we're not having a severe crisis across the country, where we're the state government, where we're having a financial hardship like a real estate crash. We're continuing to have officers who are putting in their resignation, whether they're leaving the field in general or their motivation to go somewhere else. But we have to get ahead. And the dilemma we're going to start to be facing is who we're hiring, and now we're banking on hopefuls. And this is nothing to put down the level of recruitment. I know that the recruiter at our police department is heavily tasked with this. But like anything else, we have to provide the tools necessary. And what we're finding is that this agency is just not going to be competitive. It's not. The wages I'm trying to give what can keep officers here, on the fence, if there are officers on the fence, whether they want to leave the career in general or go to different agencies, make them to where everyone is comfortable fixing compression. And, the starting rate, again, it's the city's prerogative should be we should have people that are putting in their resignation with Daytona to come here, or Volusia County or Beach or any good, we want to facilitate that. So I know that we talked about the proposal last time it was about $1 raise. I think it worked out to about a 5% raise. We're way far behind. It's too far behind. We can work around the steps. I know the steps seem to be an issue that comes up with cost and long-term costs, and the interest I've gotten has been work on the steps, negotiate the steps rather than pay. Pay is what is putting food and keeping people in their homes and letting them stay here and feel like they're treated well and they're supported. I wanted to get you the wage proposal early so you guys could kind of have a mindset where we're coming from. That way there was no real shock. I don't like to send shock and value. I could do that, on my off time and do that fun stuff, but I want to be upfront as possible and make things easy. So we're talking at the table about realistic numbers and give you guys some time to think about, the number actively. Tell us where you're coming from, because again, we started this whole thing with trying to come in and start the negotiation progress for this year on giving enough time to where we didn't run over and we're not wasting unnecessary time. We talked about real quick, asked about the insurance studies that they're doing, and that there's a possibility of lowering it, and then basically where we came up with the raise amount from.
Can you run me through, again, you mentioned something about focusing on the steps but not the pay. What you mean by that?
What I've gotten feedback from is that the pay is more vital than the step progress. We can.
You mean like extending the steps?
Right, we can baby step to steps, some of them, but we were so far apart on that last one, it made a lot of people upset. I got a lot of, angry messages, angry phone calls. That was, hey, this isn't even remotely fair. This is like why would the city even bother trying to do this? That literally starting off from, you're way behind. Everyone's gonna be far ahead, and again, Port Orange in the background. So I want to get your thoughts on how you're feeling about this percentage.
Okay. The city is, figuring out how we're going to deal with the mandate, the legislation. I think what the immediate need is, what do we have to get to, today, who do we have that's below that, right? Which doesn't affect this unit. It's got to happen. There's timelines in place as to when it has to happen. I don't know that we're going to get there all in 1 year. The compression is a piece of it, but we're trying to work through what's the immediate need. When do we address the compression? How do we address the compression? How do we define compression? All those types of things. Thank you for sending this over early. So I did have a chance to cost this out. As far as the steps go, of course, I didn't get into your proposed language in 28.4 about a COLA for the CPI index, but just implementing the steps as you propose them, we are over $500,000 apart. We're pretty far. That's a big gap. So I don't know how we go about getting closer to that.
Well, what are you suggesting?
I'm just saying, for where we were at, where you guys are at, There's more than $500,000 in between there.
But what's your answer to that? I mean, $500,000, so what are you thinking? You know the number, so where does that leave it?
Back to where we were last time.
Exactly back there?
So, that's where, when I said, this is the pie, how do you want to slice it? So understanding your methodology with, in between your initial steps, 3%, 3%, and then you do a bigger jump in order to retain, right? Those are some of the things that we can work through as to what are the increments between steps? Why do we make bigger jumps at certain areas? Is it strategic to try to retain employees? Those are the types of things that we can work through. Okay, maybe we do a 5% jump here instead of a 3% jump. Maybe we back these down to 2.5, or something along those lines. That's where the wiggle room is. But the overall in dollar value increases, there's just no way we can get there in 1 year, for sure.
Well, it's not 1 year. It's 15 years since I've worked here. It's been like this. And every year it's next year. And like I told you at the last meeting, we can't sell this. There's no way guys are going to sign off on a less than 5% raise for the guys who have been here the longest, and a 5% raise for the guy who just walked in the door. They're not going to sign off. The city's going to have to come with more money. That's just period, end of story. All that can happen, or we'll go to impasse. Okay, because I know for a fact the guys are not going to sign off on the newest guy walking in the door getting the biggest raise, number one, and number two, if I slice a dollar up, right, to even smaller pieces of a dollar, that's certainly not going to be a sales pitch to make to them, right? Like, there's just no way that what the city's put on the table so far is going to be enough to get us to, there's just not. It's not enough money.
I think what they're saying is, I mean, we have an increased call volume. We have whole new subdivisions that are being put in for tax revenue purposes. All these businesses that are coming in, all this revenue that popped up through the time that we've worked here. And we've got the raises that were subpar waiting for it to be made whole. And as an effect, we have people that come and go, and we have officers trying to handle more and more and more and more calls all the time with that high standard that we have. And they're not being compensated. They're doing the work of more than one guy. So it'd be different if the call volume was low, officers aren't tasked with all these tasks and doing all these calls for service, but they are. And they're being tasked with overtime. They're being tasked with all different types of tasks. And then we're being told that, the raise will be minimum. Inflation is going up a lot. And that's a fact. They've already said that. So 5%, that inflation's eating most of that up. I mean, it's ineffective, and we're not going to be able to attract people that want to stay and want to do the job like we do it. That's why we have those people that come and go. And just because you hire 10 doesn't mean you're actually going to have anybody that hits the street and stays. There's one person that stayed 1 day. They were pinned and they were gone.
I was, if I may, first of all, my sincere apologies. I was in DeLand this morning with the sheriff's office, and I just out of habit went to the police department. I'm looking around in there, and I opened up the training room door, and there's some exam going on. So, my apologies. Just to go to Ted's point, I was just looking at the CPI's latest inflation number. This is the government's number of real labor statistics. It's like 5.4% is the current inflation rate. So even as Sergeant Carmen said, just to sell anything below a 5%, it's a net negative right now with inflation. And we understand that you can't magically pull money out of the air, but we also know that property rates are going up. We all see that, which is obviously an impact on the budget and what dollars are going to be available based on the military. So, and it's my understanding didn't the city get some federal funds through the pandemic? So we don't think this is an overreach, and I can tell you just from coming from the sheriff's, actually it's the beach safety negotiations today, and the sheriff's office, we're going back to the table on Thursday, but I'm sure it's no great surprise with word travels of what was put on the table to them and what was rejected with a counter proposal. And the starting pay here is 1950 the city's proposal?
That's what it's currently at.
And what are you proposing starting pay to be?
2150, no, 2050, I think is what
2050.
yours was. Yeah.
Yours, I
2050
said
was the
20.
city's.
I came up with 2150 because again, I have a hard time removing money from the
Yeah.
officers who are here at the moment.
Right.
That's the city's prerogative should want to be holding up that shiny sign and getting them in the door. I want to concern myself with keeping good officers.
I mean, all the agencies over here in this county, you all know, they're all battling to try to find new recruits. We understand that. But to Jared's point, you've got a double-edged problem, and that's keeping people in law enforcement and not frustrating the long-term ones that are here with a nominal raise. And we see the compression that happens when cities are trying to raise the starting pay to attract people, but they're forgetting the people that have been there. And yes, it costs more because these men and women have been doing the job and they are at a higher rate of pay, but that should be rewarded. So I guess back to Ted's question, you say we're $500,000 apart. I don't think anybody wants to go to impasse, but absent some movement, or if you can tell us where some dollars can be freed up, whether it be federal funds that the city came into that they weren't expecting. So re-looking at the budget based on projections of property values going up. I mean, that should bode well for the city feeling comfortable about the future, at least the immediate future, the next couple of years, to be willing to make a better job.
I understand again the $500,000 thing it's a big number, and I know we talked about last time where it's greatly accepted that this was coming, and the citizens of the city need to be presented the idea that if it's their property tax needs to go up somewhat. I don't find that you're going to find a house in this city that would tell you, I'd rather not have the cop in my area. I don't see it. And there's a lot of citizens who, we do such a good job in this city. I've had people be like, you got like 14 guys right today? That's all I see is police cars going around. You try to be respectful. I don't like to tell people the floodwaters are at their doorstep. I like to say, no, it's just rain. But there needs to be a greatly known fact that there are areas of the city that are not being staffed. So it doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm doing the best I can. He's doing the best he can. He's doing the best we can to staff these calls. And the citizens need to understand that, I remember a long time ago, the Volusia County Sheriff's Office used to have a webpage up, and it used to show the list of the deputies and what they were currently doing. And the troopers did the same thing. I don't know I know that Volusia stopped doing it, I think, after Sheriff Johnson left. But if there was a known amount that you've got some days of 5 officers in your city, there is a lot of businesses that are not going to feel comfortable with that. 5 officers, 6 officers in the daytime. We're not doing this proposal because we think it's funny. We know we're doing it because it's necessary. And, we all do the best we can to adapt to circumstances. I know Sergeant Carmen and a lot of older officers of the police department had to deal with the real estate crash of 2006 and 2007, and it lasted for years. And they were doing the best they could to show up to work and work with the city, and the city was like, hey, we're still out of money. Hey, everything's foreclosed. We're trying. There was an argument to that. There's none right now, other than your citizens are gonna wonder after a while when we're getting 10, 12 car breaks a day, stolen vehicles a day, where are your officers? How come there's no one patrolling? The officers that are patrolling, to extend off of what Ted was saying, was, if I'm a zone officer and I'm one of my zones is all of the Ridgewood corridor, which that's a busy area. All the Clyde and Morris area with all the businesses, and I'm trying to type 5-6 reports and handle cars. Proactive patrol is not on my list, which causes more crime. We see it with Daytona. This isn't a knock on Daytona Beach's ability. It's proven evidence to show that, hey, all these officers are always tied up on calls, which gives people the ability to come in and do more crime because all the cops are busy. This is a perfect time to do it. We brought up one year, I know it was a while ago, there was a Facebook group that was going around, and it was an anti-cop type of group, and they were, what's the hardest city to get through? And Port Orange is on the top. Port Orange, Shores and Port Orange. Daytona was at the bottom. You get people that post videos of themselves doing silly things in Daytona Beach, and then you get them. I don't roll through Port Orange like that. We need to accept the fact that we have a great police department, but it's going to fail. It's going to fail. And the more crime that happens, the more officers are busy, the more calls are going to pen. And people are going to wonder why, hey, I called the police 20, 30 minutes ago. Why are they not here? And it's going to happen. That's why we're bringing this up. If the city council and the city government needs to say, hey, this is how we've configured this is how we make up that difference. It's a $10 a property raise. I don't think you telling that to that citizen, hey, $10, unfortunately, is everything goes up. We have, if you want to live in the safest place, your kids going to the safest schools, we've got to make people want to come here.
So Heather, if I could just jump in, the one thing that I think, and she kind of let out with it, is facing council that's eating up a lot of, so that they are going up, right? I don't know, I'm sure you're paying attention to the budget meetings and that sort of thing, and saw the max millage rate discussion, and it's going up, right? Property taxes are going up, and they're going up quite a bit. Potentially up to 12%, I think, is where they set the max millage rate. Is that? I think that's right. But it's a significant increase in the millage, which is one way we get money for general fund. But the thing I think, that is weighing heavily on their minds is the city of Port Orange, and somewhat uniquely to the city of Port Orange, we have a large group of employees that are sub 15. And now that there's a legislative mandate, there has to be money thrown at that. They're not going to get there in 1 year, but there's going to be a significant portion of that increase in taxes that will be dedicated solely to getting to 15 in accordance with the legislative. And it's not a legislative mandate; it's a voter referendum. It's a voter mandate. They said that you're going to pay everybody 15 minimum wage.
Well, not really. They said we're going to pay everybody $15 minimum wage. The legislature set up how we get there.
Yeah,
That was not set up in the legislature did that. But arguing to us that we have a history of underpaying people, so now we have to pay them because we're mandated to, doesn't really work.
yeah,
Right? That just tells us we know we're being underpaid. That's all that argument means.
Yeah, it's not an argument. I'm just
Right. Y'all have had budget meetings and workshops. You knew we were nowhere close. And now we come back to this one. We had some in between with what I'm understanding, and you haven't said it straight out, to be basically the same amount of money that was on the table last time we were here. Is that right?
My recommendation today would be, let us go back and put our heads together, put our thinking caps on. Are there other things we can do, besides the finance of the mill rate, property taxes, right? Is there other ways for us to get
If
there?
the city's behind paying other city employees, again, that's not the union's issue. That's the city's issue.
I'm just-
And the city needs to work through that and understand that the union is not just gonna be like, okay, we get it. You haven't been paying anybody else like you haven't been paying us, so we'll just not get paid again this year. Like, that's not an acceptable response.
Yeah, that's a straight fact, dollars and cents, where-
100%. And
where's the
dollars
money
and
going?
cents wise, there's not enough in it for us right now. Dollars and cents.
I hear you.
Matt, in reference to the millage rate, what I understood, the last couple of years, they've done rollback, is that correct?
No,
They had not done rollback?
no, the last 2 years.
Have they? But they were doing rollback before that, correct?
Yeah.
So it kind of went down and then got kind of back up to where it would have been, so there's not some big jump, right?
This is,
This,
this would be the
This is gonna be a bigger one.
biggest, in probably the last decade that we've seen in pulling out to get to where we moved it. And that's, I think, we run some of that. I don't know that I can get the city to where we need to be to get to 15. And I agree that, that is a phased deal, right? It's over 5 years. The problem that we're running into, and it's just a market issue, that nobody's waiting 5 years. Because if you're the last guy to get to 15,
and again, what's that tell me, coming from the other perspective?
That's market.
What that tells me is that we're holding money back. If everybody else is doing it and getting there, and we're not, that's on us, right? As a city.
yeah, I'm just saying the idea for this city to stay competitive with, the surrounding cities is to try to get the 15 as quick as you can. It just doesn't, it
Right,
looks like,
but that's not the argument you're making for us. We're behind. We knew we were behind coming in, and accepting the dollar per spot per hour leaves us behind. So that's not the argument you're making for us. It's hard for us to buy you're making that argument for the $15 an hour.
yeah, I'm not arguing against paying you.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but that's what you're telling me, right? What you're saying is the city's so busy making these guys competitive that we can't make you guys competitive. That's what you're saying, that we're spending so much money to do that because we're mandated to do that, that we're not gonna keep you guys competitive. That's what you're saying,
Well, I think what I'm saying is, we have to get to 15.
because it's mandated, but we don't have to pay you, so we won't. That's what you're saying.
Well, it's not mandated.
Right, 100% it's not mandated.
Yeah.
So don't act like you're looking out for us. Right? It's, the city's not looking out for us. The city's looking out for, I'm mandated to do this, and because I'm mandated to do this, and I've underpaid these other city employees for so long that I've now got to make this up, right? I've underpaid them for so long now, I gotta not take care of these guys who have also been underpaid for a too long amount of time. But I have to, I'm legally bound to give these guys a raise, and I can leave these guys where they're at and forget about it. That's basically what the city's saying to the union, or not even to the union, to its police department employees. You're saying,
I think
we have to pay these guys, so we can't pay you.
there's still an increase on the table. I don't think
It's an insignificant increase that is less, for the newest guy here, it's less than what the CPI is going up. For the oldest guy here, it's way less than the CPI. So I'm going backwards. Right? And the brand new guy is almost keeping up. You see what I'm saying? It's not a raise.
Matt, say it this way, I'm gonna hire you, and I'm gonna pay you a salary, it's gonna be a set salary. Every year, I'm gonna increase the amount of job that you have to do. It's gonna be more work for you, and as you go, you're actually gonna start losing money because of cost indexes and all these other things that you have to do. Is that good? You're gonna be like, wow, this is getting overwhelming, right? Less money, more job.
Yeah,
We have consistently, excuse me, I can't talk, seen the increase of houses and apartments, and we all have our own arguments on apartments. I understand their necessity, but the city needs to figure out how they benefit financially from some of the taxes. If you can't just throw up an apartment complex every single place here,
You're talking about, I mean, this isn't like it's not a house. It is a house. And some of these apartment complexes are going, you're talking 400, 500 units, 200 units. That's 200 houses. I don't care if they don't span across 4 acres of area. It's 200 homes. That's 200 addresses. You know, you are going to consistently see that there is no way to control this area. We even brought it up before. Hey, some of these calls, you know, if the city wants to figure out on its own, hey, how do we get some stress load off of the officers? Well, we said desk units. There was plenty of people who wanted to be low priority calls. They show up just like Daytona does to relieve those on the road officers. But we don't want to do that because we have an image. The city has this image of you want to call because your neighbor's fence is 6 inches over, then we're going to send an officer out because that's the service you're going to get. Well, that's so great, but you got to pay the officer because that officer doesn't want to do that for less money than he could do at Daytona or Volusia County or Beach or South, all these other agencies. The argument of the South Daytona Police Department, and there's officers who wanted to go there because they're not stressing their officers out. They don't inundate them with more paperwork, more calls. They're like, hey, we'll fix as needed. But to Warren's point of this mandated pay, I'm going to go back to the same statement I made is you got to help the guy that you hired to fix sprinklers on Nova, and he's got to get some increase in the wage. I get it. Or do you need to put that money towards your law enforcement? Because if you I guarantee you, if one of these areas of the city, and they went to their city councilman and go, hey, why is my zone empty? I'm paying taxes. Why is there no cop in my zone? Why is there? I haven't seen it. Well, sorry, we can't make them. And when I hear the recruitment thing, it's irritating because you cannot replace knowledge and term of service. You can hire me to do your job or Heather's. You can hire me to do it. It's going to be terrible. You pay me. You say, hey, we're going to hire you to do Heather's job, and I go, okay, well, I don't know much, but hey, we're saving money on him because he's cheaper. And then you're getting sued, and then records are terrible, and you're trying to fix problems, and you hire me to do your job, $10,000 less a year, and I'm getting the city sued constantly because I don't know what I'm doing. The officers that come on the road they're like anyone else. They're new, and they have to fulfill their career. It's not replacing an officer. If an officer is 7, 8, 9 years in here, 10, 14, whatever, and you don't have any more argument to keep them, and we replace them. Doesn't work that way. It's that whole experience is gone. The mindset's gone. And then they're learning off of the only people they have around them, which is newer people, and you can only learn so much from people who only have a couple years more experience than you. If I've never worked a legitimate homicide scene and I'm now tasked to do it, I will do the best I can. But you hope to have that entity that says, hey, this is the guy, he's had 3 homicides, we know what we're doing. This sergeant has ran a platoon for 9 years. He knows what he's doing. You are going to have a problem. And out of respect for my job, I do the best I can, as everyone is doing the best they can. Everyone is. But you're going to burn them out. You're going to burn them out. They're going to make mistakes. We're working ourselves to death, and then you just increase. Here's another thing. Here's another thing. Here's another thing to do. Sorry, we just built another subdivision. Here's more streets to patrol. Oh, there was 20 car breaks in your area. What happened? Well, I was writing 4 reports, trying to take all the miscellaneous calls that don't require reports. So I want the city to take the number that we're looking at and go, how do we get to it, rather than how can we make them take something less? That's where we're at here. I want to see the city go, hey, we need to figure out how we can get closer to this number, rather than how do we try to sell these ding dongs at the police department to take this lower figure. Because you're not going to do it anymore. You're not. I can guarantee you're not.
I have a question. We'll try to refocus this here. We sent an answer, an adjustment to you ahead of time, so you guys had time to plan on that. And have you made any counter proposal? Did you guys work on that? And because that's ultimately where we want to go. Is we want to get it done. We want to do it amicably so everybody's satisfied, and we need to do it so our department can provide the services that the citizens need, and we kind of need it. We need to do it now. That's what we need from you. We need you to come and meet us.
To be perfectly honest, I got this yesterday. So
Okay.
no, I haven't had time to crunch numbers and come right, but that would be, again, that's my recommendation is let us take this back. Let us get with the finance team, let us put our heads
If
together.
you didn't have enough time,
Let us
that's
see
totally
what
understand.
we can do, right?
I
I'm
don't
not
know
going,
when you got
nope,
it.
sorry, that's it. We're just, like I said, we're gonna have to be creative. We're gonna have to, get the finance department, look at other options to see what.
It's going to help everybody if we work together on it.
Yeah, I just want to do it in 24 hours, so.
Who would that be? Is it Mr. Neals that does, or Linda Truitt?
Currently, it's Linda Truitt.
When we were here back on July 7th, you said, I wrote this down, Heather, there's $2 million in federal COVID funds that's sitting in reserve for the city. Can we ask in this meeting, this public meeting, that they go back and consider using it? You said we're $500,000 apart.
Right, so one of the things, and I apologize, I'm doing several negotiations at once, so I don't know if we've talked about it in this unit or not, but the thought process is that's money in a savings account, right? I can't use one-time monies for recurring expenses, which are salaries, right? So yes, there would be reserves sitting in this account, $2 million, let's say. I could use to fund this for 1 year. The problem is when you get to the next year going, okay, I now have to fund it at this level, we're gonna have to raise taxes by X amount of dollars because that money's no longer in my savings account to keep it going, right? You don't use your savings account to pay for your light bill, you've gotta pay that every month. So that's the thought process, is we don't use one-time lump sum monies to pay for recurring expenses. That being said, I'd like to go back and explore all the options, talk through the pros and cons of all different types of options, to get creative, to see how we can get there.
I would just say one thing about that, what you just said, I understand that. You'd be drawing from reserves, but this, I honestly feel like we're at close to a crisis level in law enforcement. And again, thankfully, we're not a Chicago with 40, 50 murders over the weekend. I saw a statistic last week that something like 350 had already quit, and about 400 resigned last year. We're not there, but to think that we're sitting here in a nice, beautiful, sunny coastal town in Florida that's not going to happen here is not planning for the future. So to me, I would almost urge you that let's bring the finance people here next time. Let's have the number crunchers here so we can ask these questions and get them to understand, hopefully, the city council. Because I agree with Jared. I think if you tell them, look, yeah, we have to take 1/4 of our reserves to fund our police department, to not lose people, to be able to hire people, and to be up in the upper 1/3 of Volusia County in new pay and retention pay rather than playing catch up again. And then we can go sell a tax increase next November of 22, and say, hey, you want to still want Chief Proctor and whoever else is running the police department here to be able to say with pride that we're guarding and protecting the citizens of Port Orange, and keeping the crime rate down, to be able to do what Jared said, where they kind of bypass Port Orange and don't go commit crime here. People will understand that. I think so. This is a crisis. Reserves are for that reason, and I think we're in one. I think we're on the cusp of one here. They're having one in New York, Chicago, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, LA. Those police departments are having legitimate. They're in deep valleys of crisis for law enforcement. But it's not a far cry to think that it's not gonna trickle down here. And, you know, our voters can sometimes be more foolish than they think ahead. Oh yeah, $15 minimum wage, let's do it. Yeah, that sounds good. Go check that box in the voting booth without thinking, okay, well, wait a second. That's gonna have a ripple effect. It's gonna have a ripple effect next time I go to McDonald's or Burger King or Chick-fil-A, because the prices are gonna be higher now. And it's gonna be higher at the gas pump, and it's gonna be higher here. We gotta pay for that. We gotta pay for the guy mowing the lawn outside the Fort Orange Police Department now. He's gonna be getting $15 an hour. And maybe he should. That's a whole different discussion. But it does impact everything. And I think the city council, it's great to have a rainy day fund, but I think we're pretty close to a rainy day. And that's what you're hearing from them that work here, the rank and file, are saying, those that are listening have communicated that, you know, impasse is not gonna serve anybody's interest. So we do hope that we could come back, and I'd love to hear we'd love to hear a definitive answer. Why can't, is it a hard no that you won't look at the reserves this year to get that extra 500,000, or even meet us 3/4 of the way or something? But just a no doesn't leave us a lot of room either.
I think all of you have made some good points. You know, I don't
Do we
disagree
know-
with you on certain things, so that's why I just want to take a look.
Do we know per mill, I'm not in all these negotiations, so I don't know all the numbers.
There's a workshop.
Per
almost-
mill, what amount of money we raise in tax? I mean, $500,000 in mill terms in this city with 60,000 people living in it, I don't believe it may be, I don't know. I don't have a
One
number,
of
but
the
I gotta
mills
believe it's less than
It's
probably
like
a tenth of a mill.
330,000.
Yeah,
My number
Yeah.
is correct. So, you know, 0.2 mils
yeah,
roughly.
yeah. 0.2 mills. We know we're going to a tax raise this year. Yeah, it's clear we're raising taxes this year. So 0.2 to meet us at everything we're asking for is pretty doable, if you ask me.
So the max millage has been set. There is another budget workshop coming up, I believe, August 23rd is the next one. So we'll see where it goes from there. But the maximum, we know what the maximum is gonna be. Now it's kind of like Matt was, how do we fund everything we have to fund out of what we've got? And where does that number land?
Right,
So
but we
it's
set
a
a
little
max
bit
last
of
year that we had no intention of reaching. Right, is that what they did again? I didn't
I don't
unfortunately
know,
see
right?
that.
Like I said, they have another budget workshop coming up
Yeah.
to determine if we're gonna go down further or where that's gonna land. So that part is still in flux. That's why I said, you know, there's still some, I don't know, I can't say this is it, best and final, we're done, right?
Right.
I wanna go look at what options do we have? Can we get creative? Can we think outside the box, right? Can we, you know, as you mentioned, could that be an option, right?
Right, but
I wanna go flush out through all of those before I come back.
I got you, but 2/100ths of a mil or whatever is what we're talking about for a difference, 2,500ths of a mil, something like, 2/10 of a mil. All right, that's significant. Okay. You know, the math doesn't work in my head for that to be 2/10 of a
It'd be
mil.
less than 2 tenths. It'd be over a tenth, less than 2 tenths. So
Yeah,
Maybe
of a mil.
point, 1.5,
Yeah.
so roughly.
So I mean, that's what we're talking about, asking council to ask for, to give us everything we ask for. Right?
just
I
to
mean,
put it-
So that's in addition to, right? They've already factored.
100%, but you're raising taxes anyway. Do you do it this year, and do you not do it this year and pull from the reserves to get us to agree? And now you gotta do it again next year, or do you buy once, cry once, raise the millage rate to a reasonable level where you can fund, where you guys aren't working so hard trying to fund everything, where there's enough money to fund people, buy once, cry once. That's what we're asking you to go back and say. I know you guys can't print money to offer us. I got that, right? But we need to get it communicated very clearly that there is not enough money for us to get an agreement right now being offered. Not anywhere near enough. And we need to get that across. I mean, $500,000 is not very much money when you're talking about millage rates on 60,000 people, right? Less than 2/10.
To put it in perspective, I mean, right now, your millage rate overall is only 4 mils. It's 4.2 something. So, I mean, it's, when you talk, I know it, when you hear tenths of a mil, it sounds like
Well, yeah, because if you want me to start reading off county millage rates, I will. They're all much higher than ours. So yes, it is a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying as a percentage, because that was the point.
Right.
As a percentage.
Right, as a percentage, so, yeah, 0.2 over 4 is significantly more than 0.2 over 10, right, I got you.
Yeah, 10's your max.
Right.
Legally,
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, let us go back and first thing you kept on and see what we can do. We want to go ahead and schedule the next meeting, let's get it on the calendar.
And Heather, one other thing, I guess you guys talked a little bit about insurance for me here. I'd also noted that, as I understand it right now, the city's paying $595 per month for health insurance for employee, right? But dependent coverage is 100% on the employee. And one area you said you would also look at is insurance, because New Smyrna Beach, so they pay 50% dependent coverage.
Yeah, so I was explaining earlier before you got here,
Yeah.
I was hoping I could go to Brown and Brown, that they would have that information as to, because they're the broker for the majority of the cities in Volusia County.
Yeah.
I was hoping I could say, hey, you guys have this data, you can compile and send to me without going out. Because with the $15 an hour thing, because of COVID, I get several emails a day from other entities, we're all going back and forth on stuff, so I'm trying to minimize another email to go out to them. But it turned out that the information that Brown and Brown provided to me wasn't what I was looking for. So I am gonna have to go out, to each individual city and go, what are you guys doing for independent healthcare coverage? How much do you pay? What is your premium? All that kind of stuff. So, that I still have to compile. But I did mention that we are looking at potentially a decrease in premiums, with our insurance carrier. So, that's still in verbal talks, but it looks like there will be some reduction there.
That's obviously.
So that's a good thing. It's something, right? So, but that also has to, contracts and approved by council and all of that good stuff. So it's still early in that process. But we did talk about last time, the employment contract for recruits and sworn officers. I did get some responses on those, so I will compile those and send those out to the bargaining unit. So you can see that piece of it anyway, but I still have to gather data on the health insurance piece of it. So. All right, so maybe we can look at your calendars. Gary, I know we kind of go around yours, but maybe
How quick?
come the end of next week.
When's your next meeting, council?
Trying to get one for Tuesday, the 17th. That's why I say maybe Friday of next week.
Friday or the following Monday, 23rd.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't on Friday. That's the.
I'm open on the 23rd.
That would be, Thursday, but that wouldn't help you, would it, the day before? Thursday the 19th, something like that?
I could move some stuff around. What about the 23rd? Are you available on Monday?
23rd could work.
23rd would look better for me.
Yeah, it would have to be an afternoon, then, because I get off work at 6:30.
Afternoon sometime.
I've got general employees pension board meeting at 2. Is 1 too early?
So you're working overnight, so. you-
Yeah, one, I can make it by one. Yeah. I can
1 be
make that.
okay?
Okay, is that your preference? Or after, before that?
Unless you'd rather do it after your general meeting,
So that would be
because it's only gives us a 1 to 2 slot.
3. We could probably, I'm scheduled at 3:30. I don't have the agenda yet. It typically don't go very long. We could plan for 3 on the 23rd.
We're out of four
You could.
on that one.
What's that? Okay.
City attorney will be out of four on the 3 o'clock.
What about, let's go back then to the 19th.
What if I just stay up and we do it early in the morning?
Bring a couple of Red Bulls with you?
Yeah, if we do it in the morning.
That, or we can do it Thursday, the 19th. I can that 2 o'clock is my meeting. I can rearrange that one.
I think at noon, I think noon gives.
Yeah, for noon, I just assume just stay up and cover.
So,
Or earlier.
Yeah.
You go with it. So
Yeah.
you do
Gary, what do you
negotiations
have there?
early morning on a Monday. I don't know, if that sounds great, but
So let's go back to Monday the 23rd.
let's go to Thursday, the 19th.
Thursday the
Let's,
19th.
Okay.
let's plan for that. I'll reschedule my 2 o'clock.
Where do you
So
want
do
to go
want-
there
What's that?
on Thursday?
What's that, Thursday?
Where would you like to go on Thursday?
If this room is available, like at 2:00?
Yeah, I'm meeting with, I got a meeting with PD.
Okay.
Purchasing on,
Monday the 23rd, not too bad.
Do, would I do like an 8:30 Monday morning?
What day is
Is
that?
the earliest
23rd?
better for
23rd.
Sergeant Carmen?
We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that as a certain,
do that.
you're
I'll
okay
fight
with
through
it.
it.
That work
Yeah,
for you
yeah.
guys?
That way it'll be nice and pleasant, you know.
Great.
I'll give him a couple boxing gloves.
And it'll be here.
We'll do it here.
8:30.
8:30.
All right.
8:30 to 23rd.
Okay. How it goes. All right.
And that'll give you time to get with all the people you need to talk to.
Hopefully so. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your patience. I think I took the wrong building before. Sorry about that.
This one actually probably is easier to get to coming up.
Well,